Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Business Bible Study. So today we're not in our usual venue at the Daria Debo Innovation Hub because I am not home. I'm not home. So I'm on a trip. That's why we're not in our usual venue. However, the show must go on. So we're going to have Business Bible Study today, right here, virtually, just virtually. Okay. Today we're discussing going from being the underdog to becoming the captain of your industry. Now, this is very possible. I've seen it happen over and over again. I've studied companies that have gone from being the underdogs to becoming the captains of their industry. And I'm sure that even as I speak, you probably have one or two companies in mind that were the underdogs. Nobody regarded them before. And then now they're the captain of their industry. I mean, let's look at, for example, Nigeria. In Nigeria, there is a company in the whole world. There's a company called Coca-Cola. I mean, Coca-Cola, everybody knows Coca-Cola in the whole world. They're giants. I mean, it's Coca-Cola. They're in 196 nations of the world, I think, and they are massive, massive worldwide conglomerate. However, in Nigeria, a particular company called Biggie started. Biggie, we have the Biggie Cola, we have the Biggie Water, we have the Biggie orange drink like Fanta. And these guys were just in a factory in Shagamu. Shagamu is a part of Ogun State in Nigeria. And these guys grew from practically nothing to practically now taking over the market in Nigeria. That's the beverage drink market in Nigeria. Almost everywhere that you go, you see people drinking Biggie. And in fact, they have stolen such a huge market share. I don't have the figures, but last I checked, I think it was about 60% of the market share, while Coca-Cola is just struggling with about 40%. In Nigeria, they were the underdogs. They were nothing. But then they rose all the way to become like the captain of the industry. Of course, we know that worldwide Coca-Cola is still the master, but at least in Nigeria, you go to many big events, you go to many big hotels, go to Eko Hotel, for example, and Eko Hotel is the hub for events and hotels in Nigeria, in the entire country. Eko Hotel is where the biggest events happen. It's where people usually want to lodge, guests that come from outside Nigeria. It's just the hub. And every drink that is served in Eko Hotel is Biggie. No other drink is served in Eko Hotel aside Biggie. That's beverage drinks and all that, apart from the ones that are made, right there. How did Biggie do it? Now, that's Biggie. There was another company many years ago, still exists, called Cowbell. The company that was leading when it comes to milk in Nigeria was Peak Milk. Peak Milk was the bomb. I mean, in those days, they used to have these tins, Peak Milk tins, and they were just it. Nobody could compete with them. Every milk in Nigeria was Peak Milk, serving the hundreds of millions of people in Nigeria. Then this company came up called Cowbell Milk. And Cowbell, they were the underdogs. Cowbell somehow took a lot of market share from Peak. At a point when Peak realized that they were going to go out of market completely, they started to copy Cowbell. The giant was now copying the little one. Imagine Goliath removing his armor and now trying to say, okay, teach me how to use a sling. So the giant was now copying the little one. I've seen it happen, and I can go over and over and over again. The giant today that we know as Meta, Facebook, was the underdog at a point. MySpace was there. There was Friendster. If even Google had their own social media network, there were all these big social media networks, and Facebook was the underdog, started by a bunch of college kids. Today, Facebook has over 2 billion people on it. Instagram, and they now own Instagram. They own WhatsApp. They own, the messenger app. There is Meta. There is artificial intelligence, and there's all these, all coming from an underdog. Elon Musk was an underdog in the car industry. I'm giving you examples so that when I start to teach, you see, I want you to first see the possibility, because if you can achieve it in your mind, then you will achieve it on the outside. It's not about what I'm going to teach you. It's about how you feel about it and how you start using it the moment you learn. Now, Elon Musk, Tesla, was the underdog when it came to cars. What was Tesla, for Christ's sake? There was Toyota, there was Mercedes-Benz, there was Honda, there was, and there is Toyota, there is Mercedes-Benz, there's Honda, there's Lamborghini, there's Ferrari, and all that. Who is this guy called Elon Musk? And what's this car called Tesla? In actual fact, it was believed that it was impossible to come into the car industry and to make waves, because the car industry was already saturated. There's high cost of entry. There's already huge competition within the market. So how do you come in? But this guy came in with a product called Tesla, came in and took over the market in the United States of America, especially, from all these big giants. So I have seen underdogs go from being very small and rise up to becoming captains of industry. Now, I don't know where your business is right now, but I'm assuring you that if you pay attention to the things that you learn in this video today, you can be the underdog now. But very soon, I'm talking 10, 20 years from now, you can be the captain of industry. In the Biblical Billionaire Club, our major assignment is to raise Christians to become captains of their industries, whatever industry it is that you are in. So pay attention, all right? Now, there are 5 stages to being an entrepreneur, and I've done a video on that on YouTube here, so maybe you check the description and then we'll put the link to that video in the description. I don't want to go back all the way to looking at those 5 stages, but there are 5 major stages of being an entrepreneur. And then practically the primary period is when you're the underdog. But you see, the Bible says something in Zechariah chapter 4 verse 10. The Bible says, "Who is he that despises the days of little beginnings?" What really he was saying is, if you despise the days of little beginnings, you are a fool. That's what he was really saying. Who is he? Why would you despise the days of little beginnings? Why would you despise the days when someone is living from hand to mouth? Don't despise it. You don't despise also your own days of little beginnings right now. Yes, the beginnings may be small right now, but do not despise it, because if you do, then you are being foolish. You know why? There is a sentiment in the heart of God when it comes to those that are little. There is a sentiment in his heart. He is always supporting them, So if you move one step, he will take you 10 steps further. So he's saying, don't despise the days of your little beginnings. I know that right now you're probably struggling to get clients. I know that right now it seems like, the business is not moving well. I know that right now things seem to be difficult. Things seem to be hard. The government is on your shoulders. Everything is just going bad. But do not despise the days of little beginnings. The first thing that you must do is to begin to see that company the way it should be. Don't despise it because it's in its little beginnings. Begin to see it in that great place. My mentor, Dr. Cosmas Maduka, he said when he was 15 years old, he wrote down the things that he wants for his life, and for his business, that he was going to become a millionaire at the age of 24, have a car, have, this and all that. Wrote all those things down. And part of his dreams also, even though I don't think that was what he wrote down, part of the dream also was to have a company that would be all around the world. At this point, this man was, he was traveling from Nnewi to Lagos selling spare parts. He had nothing. But he said he was going to, when he was 14 years old, he said he was going to own a building like AG Leventis. AG Leventis is, massive car brand in Nigeria. They sell cars. He was going to own a building like AG Leventis. In fact, it was in a bus when he actually said it out loud for the entire bus to hear. And the man sitting beside him gave him a dirty slap and said he should keep quiet and stop saying rubbish. Today, Costaris is not only bigger than AG Leventis. Every Costaris branch in Nigeria, and I believe outside Nigeria, I've never seen anyone outside Nigeria, but I believe outside Nigeria, but every Costaris branch, at least in Nigeria, is built in the same model as AG Leventis. The same model. So if you pick that picture of AG Leventis in those days and you bring it beside any Costaris branch and you remove the logos, you will not know which one is Costaris and which one is AG Leventis. So He had, at 14 years old, when he was selling spare parts, already been seeing his company as big as age 11 is, and that's how come he became as big as it is. So you must not despise your days of little beginnings. Today, he recently bought a company in Japan. He had said it in those days, and he said he was having the dreams. He used to see it in his dream and all that. He had said it had taken over his mind that he was going to own a company in Japan and all that. So you must not, the first step is that you don't despise your days of little beginnings. The first step is that you see yourself in that high place. When Barack Obama was a student in college, he told all his friends, he said, I have to be careful the things that I do now, because one day I'm going to become the president of the United States of America. Let that sink in. A black boy in college at the time when I think George Bush Sr. was president, in the days when racism was very high. There was no more slave trade, but racism was very, very high. That black boy in college not only thought it in his heart, not only said it to his family members and friends, his family members, but told everybody in his room and everybody who cared to know that he had to be careful what he was doing. He had to be careful who his friends would be, because one day he would become the president of the greatest nation in the world, a predominantly white nation. A black boy saying that. A black boy in college. He had not even finished from the university. He had not even gotten a job. He did not even have a career path yet. Was saying he will become the president of the USA one day. And guess what? He became the president of the USA. He became the very first black president that was ever elected into office in the United States of America. He saw the picture when his beginning was small. In fact, he saw the picture when he hardly even had any beginning at all, and he attained it. So what's the picture that you're seeing? Maybe now I should talk like the motivational speakers. You cannot feature in the picture that you cannot feature in the future that you cannot picture. Really powerful saying, actually. You cannot feature in the future that you cannot picture. So the first thing is that you don't despise your days of little beginnings. Right now, today, write those dreams down, so that 20 years from now, when we're talking about your story, like we're talking about that of Obama, you can go back to records. You can write it on social media, so that at that time we can go back to records and you will say it that I already saw it several years ago. I had already started telling people several years ago that this is who I'm going to become. And see, now I am that person. You have to be very bold about it. Very bold about it. Don't despise your days of little beginnings, and don't be shy, even in your days of little beginnings, to talk about the great things that you will achieve later on in life. All right? That's number one step. Number two step, Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 6. Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 6. The Bible says there, God was telling the children of Israel, he said, you have stayed long enough on this mountain. Then he said, look at the land. In fact, I feel like I should read that passage to you verbatim. Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 6. In fact, we should probably do 6 to 8 or so. We should probably do 6 to 8. Then he said, look at the lands. I've given, take the land. Just go and take it over. He said, look at the land. Just go and take it over. So one thing I know about God is that he hates stagnancy. He hates it when someone stays in one position. The Lord our God spake unto us in Horeb, saying, ye have dwelt long enough on this mount. Turn you and take your journey and go to the mount of the Amorites and unto all the places nigh thereunto, in the plain, in the hills, and in the vale, and in the south, and by the seaside, to the land of the Canaanites, and unto Lebanon, and unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Behold, I have set the land before you. Go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to give unto them and to their seed after them. See the long lists. See the long list. Number one thing that you must do, or number two thing that you must do, if you're going to go from being the underdog to becoming the captain of your industry, is you must hate stagnancy. Never stay on a mountain too long. If a child is in SS1, senior secondary school 1, or let's say for the sake of those who are not in Nigeria, if a child is in grade 5 was in grade 5 in 2023 and is in grade 5 in 2024, has he stayed in one position? Really? He was in grade 5 in 2023 last year, and 2024 this year, he is still in grade 5. He's still in the same class, exact same teachers. But really, has he stayed in one position? No. He has actually gone backwards. That's why God hates stagnancy. If you made a certain amount of money last year in 2023, 2024 is almost over, and you are making the exact same amount of money, or maybe just a little bit around that amount of money, I'm sorry to say, but you have gone backwards. If you owned the same value of assets, the same net worth last year as this year, you have gone backwards. You are not in the same position as you were. You have actually gone backwards, because any child that repeats a class is not congratulated, is not even just seen as normal. Nobody's indifferent about it. Clearly, everybody says that child has gone backwards. I know, because I repeated a class in secondary school. Many people say I'm very smart and intelligent today. All that actually started from me repeating a class. That was when I realized that I was a dullard. Maybe I should rephrase that. That was when I realized that I was a very intelligent person, but I was acting like a dullard. So I changed my habits, and then I began to, soar higher. So I repeated a class, and that made me reflect, made me sad. I was ashamed of myself being in the same class. I was sad, and it made me reflect, and it made me take the decision to change my habits, and that has changed my life forever. Now, some people made the same amount that they made in 2022, made that same amount in 2023, and they are still smiling. They are still happy. They are still feeling good. They think that everything is fine. Nothing is fine. Some people make the same amount 2023 and are already on the verge of making the same amount in 2024, and they are still happy. You must hate stagnancy. You must hate being in the same spot for too long. God had to tell them, you have stayed on this mountain too long. Don't stay on any mountain too long. Don't stay on any mountain too long. In fact, for me now personally, if in, say, January, I made a certain amount of money, and in February, I'm making the same amount of money or something just around it, I become scared. I become very scared, as in my heart begins to beat, because I'm afraid that I'm about to go off business completely. That's how much I hate being stagnant. Even within the year, between 2 different months, especially when I can't trace it to any particular thing. Maybe COVID didn't happen, there was no disaster, I can't trace it to anything, but just normally business just did not go as good as last month. I become very scared. Everything, my alarm is up. I'm driving everybody. I'm saying we need to get this. I have sleepless nights. I become very scared. So I don't understand how somebody for the last maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years have been making the same amount of money and they are relaxed. I honestly don't get it. And you see, that's how people become poor, because inflation has been happening every single year. Let's say you made 100 million naira last year. Your 100 million naira last year is not the same as your 100 million naira this year. Inflation has happened, yet you've remained on the same level. So actually you've gone backwards. And then after 5, 10, 20 years, you now realize that, hey, I'm no longer as rich as I used to be. And that's one of the major dangers of salary. When you are an employee and you're depending on only salary. Salaries don't get increased that often. You could get a little increment now, but you hardly see an employer that will do a double, that's 100% increase in salary. That's you're earning 50K now, and the next month you're earning 100K. You hardly see that. So they increase it from 50K to 60K thereabout, to 65K thereabout. And then before long, you realize over the span of 10, 20 years that your salary is very small and you have gone to the lower class. All right. So you must hate stagnancy. You must hate. I'm not saying that you should dislike. I'm not saying that you should avoid. I'm saying you should hate stagnancy. Hate it with a passion. Hate it with a passion. Now, Isaiah chapter 60, let me give you the promise. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 22. The Bible says that God was telling his children of God, you and I, he was saying that the least of you shall become 1,000, and the small shall become a great nation. The least of you shall become 1,000. The small shall become a great nation. Until you have 1,000 branches, at least 1,000 branches, you've not yet started. Until you become a strong nation, in the sense that your income, your revenue in a year can be linked to the GDP of a strong nation, not just any nation, a strong nation. It can stand beside a strong nation. You have not yet started. You have at least 1,000, because that's what Isaiah 60 verse 22 says. It says that the least of you, the smallest of you, shall become 1,000. In other words, you have 1,000 replicas of whatever it is you have now, 1,000 branches. And then the small ones amongst you shall become a strong nation. In other words, your income, your revenue for a year is equal to the GDP of a strong nation. Until then, you haven't even started. That is the place that we're going to. That's the promise. That is what he has placed on ground for us. And that's what we must pursue. So think about it. What's the GDP of a strong nation? What's the GDP? I mean, I think the USA, for example, the USA is a strong nation. I mean, it's the strongest economy in the world. After the USA, China should take over in the next 5 years or so. So what's the GDP of the USA? I'm not sure what it is, but it's several trillions of dollars. But until your income is, so you see that you have a long way to go. There's no resting. Until your income is as good, or let's even say India. India is the 5th strongest economy in the world. Let's even say India. That your revenue is as big as the GDP of India. That is where you're going to. That is where you're going to. One of the first 5 economies in the world. That's where you're going to. All right? Now, how do you get there? How do you get there? I've told you the first thing, it's in your mind. I've told you the second thing, you don't stay on a mountain for too long. Now let's go to the action steps that you do when you're tired of staying on that mountain. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 2 to 3. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 2 to 3. It says, enlarge the place of thy tent, and let them stretch forth the curtains of thine habitations. Spare not. Spare not. Don't hold back. Another version says, don't hold back. Lengthen thy cords and strengthen thy stakes. For thou shalt break forth on the right hand and on the left, and thy seed shall inherit the Gentiles and make the desolate cities to be inhabited. So what does it say? Enlarge the place of thy tent. Keep enlarging. Let them stretch forth the curtains of thy habitations. Stretching forth the curtains of thy habitations, it can be likened to stretching forth the branches that you have, or so not really the branch, stretching your hands, where you're stretching forth, the place of your habitation. You're now reaching out to people that are in India, reaching out to people that are in China, reaching out to people that are in the USA, reaching out to people that are in Canada, reaching out to all these people. But then you're not to stop there. You are to lengthen your cords. That's, in other words, your connection with them. Lengthen it. Make it such that you are strongly connected with that new nation, with that new city, and then you are to strengthen your stakes. Strengthen your stakes. When you get to a new city, don't just be there as an underdog. Go there and expand. Strengthen your stakes in that land. Connect with all the high and mighty, and when you get there, strengthen your stakes. Go deep. Become deeply rooted in that land. Become deeply rooted in that land. You see, that's one of the things that Coca-Cola has done. Coca-Cola did exactly this. Isaiah 54 verse 2 and 3. They enlarged the place of their tents. They stretch forth the curtains of their habitations. they spared not. They did not hold back at all. They lengthened their cords and they strengthened their stakes. That's why I can talk about Coca-Cola being a captain of industry in an African nation, in Nigeria, whereas this company is in the US or from the USA. But they have become captain because they have strengthened their stakes in every nation that they went to. When they were putting the names on the bottles, they had Femi on some bottles, they had Bumi on some bottles, they had Chidima on some bottles, they had Haruna on some bottles. They strengthened their stakes in Nigeria. So you don't just expand to a particular place. When you get there, you have to strengthen your stakes in that place. Now, I have an assignment for you. I want you to write down the place that you want to be in the next 20 years. Where do you want to be in the next 20 years? How large is your company going to be in the next 20 years? I want you to write it down. If you can send me a message, I'll appreciate that. Find a way to send me a message, maybe on DM or something, maybe on Instagram. Write it down, the place that you want to be in the next 20 years. And then you won't just stop there. You will write out how you're going to strengthen your stakes, how you're going to enlarge your tent, how you're going to strengthen your stakes in that place, how you're going to connect with people. What are you going to do step by step for the next 20 years in order to get there? There was a time the president of this nation, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was the underdog in politics. I mean, the party that was ruling then, PDP, seemed so big, they were unconquerable. But he had a blueprint. And about 30 years later, he's the president of the nation. He had a blueprint. He started from Lagos, took Lagos over, then from Lagos moved on to Edo State, Ogun State, and many other states in Nigeria. Before long, APC was the majority party in the House of Senate, and then before long, APC brought in, the next president, which is Buhari, and then next thing, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is president. He had a blueprint. If you want to achieve this dream, you need to also have a blueprint for your business, have a blueprint for your life, have a blueprint for your growth. All right. Thank you very much for being a part of Business Bible Study today. I really do hope that you learned something. I'm going to check the chat box to see if there's any question. You just got a subscriber. Keep this up, please. Thank you. Don't stay on the mountain too long. Yeah, 1,000 branches. Yes. I hate stagnancy. Thank you. Inspired. Thank you, coach. Thank you. Thanks, Coach. Word. Okay. Thank you very much for all the very encouraging words. I'm really encouraged. Please do subscribe to this channel, like our videos, join the Biblical Billionaire Club. It's absolutely free of charge to be a part of the general club, the Biblical Billionaire Club. There are 4 steps of the club. There's the general club, there's the premium club, there's the gold club, and then there's the diamond club. The general club, which is the very first step, is absolutely free of charge to join. I'll put the link to the to join in the description down there. And once you join, just say hello to me on WhatsApp, save our number, say hello to me, and I'll see you maybe in the other levels of the club, and then we're able to connect even better. Thank you very much. All right, it was a very good time. Thank you. Oh, you're joining from Canada. We're coming to Canada next year. We're going to have a conference in Canada next year. So, Yemi, please do join. I'll put the link in the description. The link to join the Biblical Billionaire Club in the description. It's absolutely free. Just join. Immediately after this video, just check the description and you'll find it there. All right. Thank you.